Hello, here is your astrology chart and just a few notes that I made and things that I'm going to elaborate on. The way that I read astrology is a combination of Vedic astrology and Western astrology. So the school that I studied with last is called the Shamanic Astrology Mystery School, and they sort of have their own paradigm, which is a mixture of ancient, like Sumerian astrology, Egyptian astrology, like the different ways that ancient people tracked time, and some things from Vedic astrology. So the some things basically is the north and south node. They've taken from that, and also some from pretty much a little bit from every culture's way of reading astrology. Shamanic astrology has sort of taken the essence of each of those things and created this model that I like a lot. So I'm going to read your chart using that model. So before we start, I always like to call in sacred space, calling in my higher self, your higher self, giving gratitude and paying honor to all those ancient cultures and tribes and way that they've been able to preserve the information and all the standing stone temple sites, which are just amazing to me, the way that they've lined up so perfectly with the different patterns in the sky. And also just calling in any energy that would like to be present or that we could use in a way to bring this reading through in a way that will be most beneficial and meaningful to you at this point in your life, and also to me, for my interest in reading this. When I printed out the chart, I could see instantly so many connections, and it's magical for me also. So just giving some gratitude for all of that. And the first thing I want to do after calling in sacred space and then offering for you also to make the space sacred for yourself, whatever that means. Lighting incense or bringing water or some sort of ceremonial things that you like to do to make your space sacred. It's always good to have a notebook to take notes, and of course you have the video recorded, so it'll be there. What I want to do first is just sort of give a brief description of this. So this is that little X I imagine to be you at the moment you were born, and this representing Earth. So all the planets, sun and moon, and whatever other items that I've used on here, this is going to be represented as a map of the sky the moment you were born. So I like to imagine this, this being you, and then superimposing that map over your head and seeing all the sort of cosmic bodies as different energies. And the way that they're situated in the sky can give us some clues about a sort of a storyline. And when we look at it that way, I find it to be really fascinating, and there's a lot of helpful tools and helpful things that you can see from the chart. So in the center is the map of the moment you were born, and then out here on the outer ring is a map of today. So I put it for the 30th of August 2017. So that's where all the planets are, and I didn't chart any transits that you have, but I already see some just by looking at them. So I'm going to pause and make some notes. All right, so you have a lot of so planets are transiting all the time. So there's always, they're always moving. We're always moving. So when I'm saying that you have a lot of planets transiting, we all have a lot of planets transiting, but they're hitting you. There's a lot of things hitting you directly. So it's kind of like I think of the transits as getting acupuncture or acupressure on different parts of the psyche. So let me first go into the storyline for your astrology chart. So we start off by looking at the moon and the south node give us clues about your lineage or a sort of skill set that you were born already being a master of. And these are things that as you're growing and you start to develop a character and an attitude and all this, your parents, people in charge of you, looking after you, will start to notice like certain things that it's unique to you, and it's like always from having kids and growing up as a babysitter, I babysat a lot of kids growing up, and you can see that these traits are like not given by the parents or even learned. It's like as soon as they develop, you can see it in them, these certain things. So for you, your moon is in Capricorn. There's the moon in Capricorn. And then the south node is down here in the second house. And you can see already you have conjunctions. So your lineage is flavored in an extra special way, being that they're not alone. The moon is not by itself, the south node is not by itself. So it adds an extra element, which I won't talk about at this point because it can become overwhelming and ridiculous, actually, confusing, So I'm going to leave it in this very basic way. So we call your lineage would be the Taurus job in the Capricorn tribe. Taurus, because the second house is like Taurus, having to do with embodiment, pleasure, everything that it takes to maintain embodiment, food, money, clothes, the delights, the earthly delights, pleasures of being in a human body. That's the realm of the second house. So we would call this the Taurus job in the Capricorn tribe. So Capricorn as a moon position, this is the tribe of elders. So as a little kid even, you would have this sense of being the boss, being the elder, being the chief, knowing what steps to take that's going to create the strongest foundation. So I have this image of like a little kid and the family's going to take a vacation or they're going to do something, and the kid, you in this story, is making a list and a plan, like, well, it would be better if we did this first and we have to get these things ready, and for sure your bag was packed appropriately, and knowing knowing what is going to be most sustainable. And so creating a foundation and a structure, that's sort of your specialty, the thing that you are a master of. So knowing this about yourself, it's like, this is what I already am a master of, Then anytime life is overwhelming or stressed out or too much chaos or movement, going back to the lineage and doing things that honor your Capricorn moon. So then with the Taurus job within that tribe, my shamanic astrology school teacher, the founder of this school, has this same lineage, and so does they've hired he's like the director of the school. I forget how you call that, but he has the same thing. So I love this archetype. I love it. Personally, I love it. So within this tribe of elders who are doing things sustainably and setting the structure and making foundation, doing it in a pleasurable way, doing it in a way that feels good. So it's not like the drag of something that Capricorn moon is a lot known for, is being sort of like Saturnine, and I forget how they call Saturn, Shanti, something like that. I can't remember the word in Vedic astrology, which is this contracted, constricted energy. So people with a Capricorn moon are often known for that. But when your south node is in the second house, it gives a like luscious embodiment to it, where it's like enjoying having the knowledge and the wisdom and the knowledge of the elders, and the joy that comes with that. So from the lineage, we want to move into the new school. We already mastered this. This is something that you don't have to try, you don't have to experiment. You've got this dialed in. Now we want to move into the rising sign. So the funny thing, I have another male friend who I consider to be my best friend in the whole world, who has the same setup, where the rising sign is conjunct, tight, close to the moon. And it gives this really interesting flavor, because now you're learning again, Capricorn. The rising sign is what you're rising into, what you're here to sort of learn about. And when it's the same as the moon, what the instructions are sort of like, okay, well, we know that you've mastered being the elder and being the chief. And now here we are going to do it again in this time in a new way, in a evolving it to so the way it looks to me is like there's this tribe of chiefs and elders, and you're there and you've got that dialed in, and then you decide to take birth in this time in your place where you were born, and it's like, okay, the chief looks different now, the tribal elder looks different now, and so now I'm going to learn about that. I'm going to learn what it means to be a chief and a tribal elder, and the sustainable foundation ground layer for this particular time and the place that I am. So within this tribe of chiefs and elders that you're rising into, so here was South Node, where you've been, what you've mastered. North Node is where you're going, what you're here to learn about, what you are learning to be a master of. So that's in the 8th house. So we call this the Scorpio job in the Capricorn tribe. So this is where it gets interesting, because now it's like I'm learning all this deep, mystical, shamanic energy building, not just building, because the 8th house is also about dying, death, and rebirth. So now I'm learning how to set this structure and foundation and having all this wisdom in a way that is deep, intense, shamanic, mystic. The 8th house is the mysteries of sex, money, death, rebirth, the underworld, the source of power, the source of, I've been thinking a lot about black holes and voids and those energy places that we have been afraid of in science and throughout time. The darkness, being afraid of that and not knowing what's in there, and your north node is in there. It's all about those things. So Scorpio job in the Capricorn tribe. This is sort of some people will call this life purpose or destiny. I think of it as a learning edge, being on the edge of, so this is like when you're making a choice in life and you're wanting to move forward and try something new, going toward these things when you have the option, it's like, yes, I'm going to go toward these things. And then when it's too much or too, overwhelmed, stressed out, it's like going back into the lineage where it's comfortable, you've mastered it. So going back to that. And I'll stop there with the lineage and the new school, or the new, what you're learning about in this lifetime. I could go on and on and on and on, especially because you have interesting dynamic placements. But I'm going to leave it for now. And if you have questions, I will talk about astrology all day. So next thing is your inner feminine and inner masculine. Now this information is like my favorite, because it's been something that's helped me a lot in my life. So for you, your inner masculine would be the way that you embody the God, your physical body being male, and the way that it's, you're embodying the God. You have Mars in Virgo next to Jupiter, again, giving an extra flavor to your inner masculine. Jupiter basically spiritualizes and evolves, expands, makes bigger whatever it touches. So this is conjunct to your Mars in Virgo. Mars in Virgo is sort of like the priest archetype who cares about the rhythm and timings, the sacred. It's all about the sacred. So for your form of the God, it is this, priest. And however you call that, the word priest might make you feel funny. So it could be yogi, the one who is honoring the rhythms and the timings of life and making it sacred. How do you make it sacred? Again, your Mars with Jupiter gives an extra flair of spirituality, evolution, and expansion. And then you also have Mars as part of this grand trine. So I'll talk about that briefly. But grand trines, the first 100 charts that I read, I found 5 people with a grand trine. Myself being one of them, my mom and one of my girlfriends, and then a couple other people. Anyway, that was 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so they're rare-ish. And it says that there's a certain extra gift of a particular element. So for you, it's the element of earth. Being like, so 2 things. One is that the earth trine can be a gift. It's a gift. It's known as a gift. If you're not using it or not aware of this gift, it can become a sort of prison because you can be spinning in this energy and not being able to find a way to move it out into the world or out of yourself even. So with a grand earth trine, it could be very heavy, contracted, constricted, like earthy. And sometimes when there's a lot, like a grand earth trine, the person could be heavy, either mentally, emotionally, or physically heavy, just like weighted down to the earth. Some of the gifts of this are being secure, foundation, having money, having the things that it takes to have a body. Food, clothes, pleasure, luxury, all of those things. So that your Mars is attached to that in a sort of a way with the trine. So anyhow, Mars in Virgo, then we mix that with your rising sign. So this is where we start to do alchemy, combining Virgo with Capricorn to find out the way that you are. I like to think of this as like the emerging God, the way that the masculine or the God is emerging in you. So Virgo with Capricorn, combining them, so mixing it up like in a hot pot. When we mix that Mars in Virgo with the Capricorn rising sign, it gives us this new flavor of your inner masculine. So that's sort of some things you can play with. To me, it really looks like the priest, the sacred yogi who is setting a structure, building a foundation. Maybe you're writing a book about who knows what, but some kind of foundation setting that's going to be sustainable and feed the next 7 generations. So then your inner feminine is the way that you perceive the feminine. First thing is the Venus on your chart is you. It's your own, the goddess, the way the goddess is emerging in you, or the way she lives in you, the way that you embody the goddess. What happens typically is that this is where you will be attracted to a certain characteristic set, a certain set of traits in a woman, or in women in general. It doesn't just have to be things that you're attracted to as far as like romance and love and all of those things. sexuality, intimacy. It's not just that, it's also friends and just women in general, that you'll see them through these sort of glasses or goggles. So for you, your Venus is in Aquarius, and again, South Node is there, which so much juicy stuff here, because I call this the evolutionary axis, where you've been and where you're going, the South and North Node. And then you have Venus at a can't get any closer conjunction, because Venus is at 29 and your South Node is at 29 of Aquarius. So Venus in Aquarius. I have Venus in Aquarius too, and this is, the form of the goddess who is cosmic consciousness. When you said that you had a book on the Vedic astrology and you hadn't quite gotten into it yet, when I saw your chart, I was like, oh, he's going to love it, because this really feeds your Venus. This really is something that will feed your Venus. So anyway, it could go on and on about that, but I'm going to stick to my little storyline here. Venus in Aquarius. So the form of the feminine that you maybe will be projecting or seeing or loving and liking a lot is the form of the goddess who is brilliant, intelligence. This is something that's like really attractive to you, is that expanded mind and big cosmic perspective on, whatever the topic is. It doesn't have to just be any particular topic. It's like that form of the feminine is enticing. And for you, this is your inner feminine. So what we do here is combine Venus with the descendant to find out what form of the goddess that you're most attracted to, most want to connect with, and really what is your form of the goddess. So I want to explain something here. First house is who am I? And you can see you have a lot of really important things going on in the first house, because there's 5 things that we use as, we call it personal planets, or it's personal to you. And you have 4 of them all in the first house. So who am I is a huge question with lots of different elements to work with in answering that question for yourself. Who am I? Over here is who are you? So in the 7th house, this is known as relationships, and this is the relationship axis. So when getting into a relationship with somebody else, and I'm going to use it as romantic, because this relationship axis can be used for relationships in general, like the way you would want to relate to your mother or your friend or anything like that. But the way I think about it mostly, because my school uses it as primarily the romantic relationship, the partnership, the beloved, the way that you're going to connect with the outer other. My school often will talk about the relationship as a mirror, and when you're in that sort of crucible of relationship with another human being intimately, deep, no hiding, no veils. It's like the mirror is in front of your face. This is where we get the most, as maybe, I don't know much about your history in that field, but where we have our, the deepest things that come out that we get a chance to explore. So in your 7th house, you have Juno. Juno is known as a marriage indicator, which that's in the 7th house, it gives us a clue saying that this person would like to have the one, the intimate, not necessarily marriage in the sense of that word, but, the primary partnership. Juno in the 7th house. So the descendant over here was who am I? Over here is who are you? So if you're sitting across the table from your beloved, here's you, here's she, her, and you're looking at each other. This relationship axis, when you're asking like, why on earth would I want to be in a relationship? This is for setting foundation, setting structure, Having a new, it's sort of like, because your moon is there also in Capricorn and you're rising into Capricorn, it's almost like having that person to build, to set that next foundation, to lay that, sustainable, the words are coming so fast, like commitment to community, to the global community, because your Venus is also in Aquarius. So it has this sort of sense of having a partner who can expand that foundation for the next 7 generations. So back to your inner feminine. We mix your Venus in Aquarius with the descendant. And then, I've worked with these two because of my own self. Venus, I have Venus in Aquarius, and then I have my moon in Cancer. So we would call this the cosmic mother. Well, I call this the cosmic mother because that's how I worked with those two archetypes. But it could be anything for you. Cancer is very well known as a good parent, a good mother, good father. When you put your Venus with Cancer, you combine those two together, and it really does have this sense of a that's Shakti, kind of the cosmic mother. If you think about Shiva being the ground of awareness, and then bringing in that feminine principle of movement and action, that's how I think anyway about Aquarius and Cancer merging together. It sort of gives this cosmic mother, or somehow, an intelligent, brilliant, Cancer is, so intelligence and brilliance is the Venus in Aquarius. And then Cancer as an archetype is, I always think about the garden. She's making the garden, having food, growing the food. She's very good at nurturing. It is the nurturer. She is the one that nurtures. Big breasted, big bodied, full. It's the fullness. Cooking the food, growing the food, setting that earth foundation. Meaning it's a water sign, but having that real connection to being able to grow the food. And nurture the food and feed other people with that food that she's grown. So that's your inner feminine. There's all this work that I've done on lots of writing, on uniting those two within the self. So you have this complete wholeness within yourself where you're taking your Mars and rising sign, getting a picture for him, or some way to relate to that imagery for yourself, and then taking this imagery of your inner feminine, the inner the goddess within yourself, putting her together with Venus in Cancer and getting some imagery for her, and then having them face each other every day. I have a good meditation that if you want I'll send to you. It's in writing. I think I did actually a video about that too. Anyway, that you can merge them and have them united within yourself, so that when you meet a woman that you're interested in, you might always be attracted to your inner feminine, meaning that you might always love this brilliance, and seeing might always be what attracts you first. But once you've sort of grounded these two within yourself, then they can show up, the women can show up however they are. And when you're attracted to those things, that brilliance and nurturing things about the woman, you'll know instantly, like, oh, this is me. I'm witnessing myself, and I'm able to, like, okay, yes, that's me. And then, it's just different, and it makes it different when you're relating to somebody else. So, let's go now. There's many more things, but since I talked a little bit about this, I'll go a little bit deeper now. The South Node being next to your Venus, not next to, they're right together, 29 degrees in Aquarius, kind of gives a clue that South Node, I often think about karma, DNA, lineage, roots, things that are patterned structures of reality that are like embedded in you, your body and your psyche and your self deeply. Your Venus is there right next to that South Node. So this gives me an idea that, number one, from past life, from the, you're bringing in this extra goddess energy into your current life. And there's so many things about that, like doing some looking into through meditation or through writing or through whatever way you can, any karmic patternings that you might have with the feminine, with the goddess, with women. And then, because what it looks like is like this is a really powerful thing for you to be able to use in this life, because just because of that alone, it's giving us a big clue as to where you've been with the goddess, with women, with the feminine. But you have this trine to Pluto in the midheaven. So the midheaven is your contribution to the world. Prince had Pluto right next to the midheaven. So really, Pluto is an underworld planet. It is depth, intensity. It's very much like Scorpio, but to the 10th degree. That world of shamanism, mystic energy, all of these things. Death, rebirth, sex, money, all of that, the mysteries. With the midheaven. So bringing that depth and intensity out to the top. So the midheaven is the way you contribute to the world. And I will just give you a short story. When I first saw you, I didn't meet you, I saw you, and I stared at your eyes for like maybe 5 or 10 seconds too long. I don't know if you remember this, but it hit me, and I had this like, it changed me in a way. There was this moment of like recognition of depth, and that is Pluto on the midheaven. It's like what people will notice about you. So I'm sure that I'm not the only person to say I've had that feeling when I've met you. So Pluto on the midheaven, being trine to the feminine, to the goddess, to your karma, your past, your conditioning, programming maybe. This is a very big thing, which I could talk for another 30 minutes just on this aspect, but I'm going to stop because I have 33 minutes for the video and we are approaching the end. So I'll thank you so much for letting me look at your chart, and I can read this chart all day. If you want me to, I will read another level. I would love to. Just say the word. So thank you so much, and I look forward to connecting with you soon.